What is going on, everybody? I hope you're having a fantastic week. Hopefully you had a very good 4th of July Independence Day holiday. Maybe you got Friday off and were able to kind of get some rest and relaxation. So hopefully you guys had a good weekend. I sure did. The topic of today's video is going to be gas mileage. Now, I've got a few people asking me questions on, how often I fill up, what kind of gas mileage I get, and, what the price is, et cetera, et cetera. So I figured I'd make a video to address some of those questions and try to give you some new insight that maybe, you are wondering about or you couldn't find on YouTube. Now, I wanted to start off by saying a lot of you know this, but some of you new subscribers or some of you viewers who just popped up on this channel, you might not know that this is no longer my daily driver. For those of you that don't know, I have a 2018 Toyota RAV4, and that is primarily my daily driver. I drive that to work. I drive it on little road trips. I kind of drove it a lot actually this weekend. So that's the car that gets the most amount of miles. I got that car back in September of 2018, and it's already got like 12,000 miles on it. So, I drive a significant amount on that car. Before then, though, because I got this car in March of 2018, and for those of you that don't know, this is a 2017 Dodge Challenger 392 Hemi Scat Pack Shaker. So a very long name, but this is the Scat Pack, so it has a 6.4 liter engine. So when I start talking about gas mileage, keep in mind that this is an 8-cylinder 6.4 liter engine, so it's a big Hemi. Now back to what I was saying, before I purchased the Toyota RAV4, I would drive this car every single day to work, on the weekends. This was my primary car. I did not have two different vehicles. And so I did get a lot better gas mileage back then because I drove this car on the highway a lot. And, my commute to work is primarily a mix of highway and street and city driving. And so you kind of get a good mix between both. Nowadays, I would say this car is primarily driven on the weekends, Friday nights, Saturdays, sometimes on Sunday. And so the most amount that I drive this car is on the weekends and within the city limits. And so I don't usually take this car on the highway. And so my gas mileage reflects that. It's not as nice as it would be if I was driving this car on the highway and on the city. I would say 90% or maybe 80% of the time I'm driving within the city, so in stop and go traffic and kind of, green light, red light, and then 10 to 20% of the time I'm on the highway. And so just keep that in mind when I mention the fuel economy that I have, that it's not a really good mix of city and highway. It's primarily biased towards the city. Now that I've covered that basis, and if you're actually curious about my Toyota RAV4 fuel economy, I posted something on Instagram. If you're not following me, definitely check me out at @Schwazy_ on Instagram. But I posted that I was able to get 40 miles per gallon in my Toyota RAV4, which is really phenomenal for an SUV, especially with one that's a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. So it's not like one of those little small 2 liters. And we had 2 people in the car. I'm not the skinniest person. So, I think it was pretty, phenomenal for me to see a RAV4 get 40 miles per gallon. Now that was primarily highway driving. Like there was no, stoplights or anything like that. So, I want to make sure I preface that because that was not city driving at all. Typically I get sometimes in the mid-20s when I'm driving to work because of the mix between city and highway. But if you're curious, definitely check that out. I can always make a video on my fuel economy with the RAV4. Now, with my Dodge Challenger driving in the city, currently I am getting 16.5 miles per gallon. Mine is the automatic transmission, which automatically comes with MDS, so the multi-displacement system. That's just Dodge's terminology for cylinder deactivation. So what it does is at certain speeds and certain RPMs, the 8 cylinders will deactivate and you'll be running on 4 cylinders. So, obviously that's going to provide better fuel economy. And like I mentioned in previous videos, that is primarily the reason, along with the fact that you have more gears in your transmission, but that is the reason why you probably will get better fuel economy in the automatic versus the manual. So with my V8 engine and with MDS and with the ZF 8-speed automatic transmission, I get about 16.5 miles per gallon driving 80 to 90% in the city and 10 to 20% on the highway. Now, each person that drives this car is going to get their own fuel economy. Now, I want to mention that I don't drive this car with the intentions of having the best fuel economy. I accelerate pretty quickly. I don't really coast on the freeway. I don't really, let off the gas or use cruise control very often. So the 16.4 miles per gallon or 16.5 miles per gallon that I'm able to usually get is really based on me driving this car free-spirited, as you can say, or not really worrying about my fuel economy. Because of course you get this car, you're not going to get the best fuel economy. I mean, it's a V8, it's got 6.4 liters, it's not going to be a Toyota Prius. And so I know that, and that's kind of how I drive this car. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't worry about fuel economy, because gas is an extra cost. I mean, that's not something to be kind of ignored, and I think it's important to focus on that sometimes when you are driving on the freeway or when you're not rushing to somewhere, that you can kind of pay attention to how you're driving the vehicle and make sure that you're being careful about getting pretty good fuel economy. So that's how I'm getting my 16.5 miles per gallon. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Dodge actually rates this vehicle with the 6.4 liter at 15 miles per gallon city and 24 miles per gallon on the highway. So if you take the average of those two, it's 18 miles per gallon. And if you really take a look on how I'm driving it, which is primarily city streets, I'm getting about the same figures that Dodge has estimated, or the EPA has estimated for this vehicle. So it is pretty accurate as to what they're reflecting and what they're providing on their website and through their marketing. So it's really, they're not lying to you. So whatever numbers they're giving you, that's probably pretty accurate. I will say though, when I did drive this car as a daily driver, I was never able to get 24 miles per gallon on the highway. That seemed unrealistic to me. But I did get about 20 to 21 miles per gallon when I was driving it, probably 70% highway, 30% city. I did get over 20 miles per gallon, and there's evidence of that actually on the video where I talk about the 7 things I love about my Dodge Challenger. I take a little video clip of my gas mileage, and I was getting about 20.1 miles per gallon at that time. And that was during the time period where I didn't have my Toyota yet, and I was driving this car as a daily driver. So it is definitely possible to get more than 20 miles per gallon on this car, but it's also definitely possible to get 15 miles per gallon as well. So if you are looking to purchase this vehicle, I would definitely take a look at the EPA figures, because those are pretty accurate, at least from my representation and my experience driving this car. I think those figures are probably what you can expect if you're driving 100% in the city or 100% on the highway. And if you are looking for the manual transmission, it usually just leads to about a 1 mile per gallon drop. So if you're looking at the city, you're probably closer to 14. On the highway, you're probably closer to 23. So your average is around 17. So those are approximate figures. I mean, it's always hard to estimate exactly, but that's kind of what's reported. And I don't really have a reason to not believe those numbers. The next question that I'm usually asked is how often I fill up this vehicle. And I think that's kind of a funny question, because it really depends on how often and how many miles you drive on this car. I already reported the fuel economy figures that I get. I get around 16.5 miles per gallon. And if you know that the gas tank in the Challenger is about 18.5 gallons, then that will give you the figure on how many miles you're going to fill up. So it really depends on how many miles you drive every day and how many miles you drive a week. So based on those figures, 18.5 gallons at around 16.5 miles per gallon, I'm usually filling up every 300 miles. Now that really depends on how you're driving again, what your mix is between city and highway. And from my experience, I usually fill up as soon as the indicator light comes on that I'm low on gas. And that's around 16.5, 17 gallons, I would say. So you usually have about 1.5 to 2 gallons left in your fuel tank when that light comes on. At least in my experience, that's not necessarily a fact that they've told me, but just in my experience, when I fill up, it usually comes up to around 16.5 gallons. So you could take off a gallon or two of 16.5 miles per gallon. So you're getting high 200s, low 300s every time I fill up my gas tank. So then you do the math on how many miles you drive every single day, and that will determine how often you're going to fill up your car, but that's just my experience. Now, of course, with a 6.4 liter V8, I always fill this up with the premium gasoline. Most of the gas stations here in my state are 91. So I fill up with the premium 91 octane, and you really have to take into account what your gas prices are in your area to do that calculation as well, to figure out, well, if I'm filling up, say 17 or 18 gallons every single time I go to a gas tank, figure $3 per gallon, depending on which fuel grade you're getting. That's about how much you can estimate you're gonna pay every single time you fill up. So keep that in mind. That is definitely a cost that you're gonna have to incur when you buy this vehicle, but that's pretty much any car that you buy. You're gonna fill up a little bit more often, but if you're getting this car to drive on the highway a lot, if you're managing to get in the 20 mile per gallon range, that's really actually a good figure for a V8 6.4 liter. I mean, if you really go back to the 60s or 70s when you had these types of engines, you were getting in the low teens and single digits in the city, and now you can get up to 25 or 24 miles per gallon on the highway driving these vehicles, and I really think that's phenomenal. So I've never actually complained about the gas mileage. I don't think it's that bad. I mean, my Mercedes, which was my previous car, I had a Mercedes C300. It was a 4MATIC, so it was all-wheel drive. That car, I was getting roughly 22, 23 miles per gallon, and that engine was a 3.5 liter. So to go from 3.5 to 6.4 and be able to get, in the low 20s in the mile per gallon range, I think that's pretty awesome. And so I'm never going to complain about that, but this is just a video for you to know if you are purchasing this vehicle, kind of what you can expect in the miles per gallon range from real life, real world testing. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk to you guys today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Hopefully I answered some of your questions. If you happen to have other questions that I haven't answered in previous videos, then please leave a comment below, and I will definitely address that in one of my next videos. And like I said, again, be sure to follow me on Instagram at @Schwazy_. I tend to make a lot of different posts, a lot of different cool photos that are more often than I make videos. So if you're curious about that, definitely check out the Instagram. But again, thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I will catch you all at the next video. Take care. Have a wonderful day.